Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Hello everyone, welcome. I want to show you the deck I call
Spawn of Satan!
I like to call it that because I don't necessarily care so much that I'm giving buffs to my little spawns and scions. I care more about the Annihilator 1 baby. And nothing seems more than making people sacrifice a lot of permanents. Spawns and Scions are like the little babies of Eldrazi, and taking away resources and not letting people play the game is one of my all-time favorite pastimes. If you are interested in building this on a budget, I have a pretty sweet list for you, and I'm going to go over the synergistic pieces for you. Starting off, we'll talk about Azlask himself, the Swelling Scourge. He's the, lieutenant of the precon. By the lieutenant of the precon it's meant to be swappable, but you really need a build around for this commander to function the way you want. I have a feeling that they're overcharging this deck like they did the last Eldrazi deck. So I made a list cheaper for you that's functionally better in every single way possible. Well, like I said earlier, I don't care how much experience counters I have. I care about the indestructible and annihilator. Sure, you could add some finishing touches with the stat increases, and that's good for the late game. Can get that experience counter high after you take away the ability of your opponents to play the game with you. So there's no rush to get experience counters. You care about the indestructibility piece and the ability of them to trade with your scions and the annihilator triggers that you should get an abundance of. I'm going to show you how to get there. First off, I have a creature suite where they put in spawns or scions. If they have an ETB trigger, the better. There's only 2 cast triggers. This one puts in 1, this one puts in 1, and so on and so forth. I did pepper in some of my favorite pet cards in terms of card advantage, so that's why you see things like Ghostly Pilferer, because it ends up drawing you way more cards than you give credit for. You know, it's only worth 14 cents, but for 2 mana, this ends up drawing me a ton of cards. Whenever someone casts someone anywhere from other than their hand, you draw a card. Bare minimum includes the command zone, and that happens a lot when you're playing Commander with 3 other opponents. If you've never played Ghostly Pilferer in your blue decks, I highly recommend you start trying him. I just wanted density with my card advantage pieces. Since I have 5 colors, I get to play the best of the best at a cheap cost. I think some people will get hung up on this. Bear with me and look at the rest of my packages in terms of making Eldrazi scions and spawns. Brood Monitors puts in 3, this one puts in 2, this one puts in 1. Mirror Entity. Now this is a special creature in that you can cheese the identity of your entire board by giving your creatures Changeling. It's a blanket effect that applies to just your board, and you can sink X mana into this and scale up your creatures anyways, but honestly, I only care about sinking 1 mana into this and turning all of my creatures into scions and or spawns, i.e., they'll become indestructible with Azlask here. And there are some other synergistic pieces in here that I guess I'll go into. One of my alternate win conditions is actually Liliana's Contract, which is another pretty solid card advantage piece. But to me, if your upkeep, if you control 4 or more demons with different names, you win the game. So if you were to have this into play with Mirror Entity and you respond to the Liliana's Contract on upkeep, you could activate the Mirror Entity at instant speed and give all your creatures the demon typing and win on the spot.
Game, set, match.
But that's in here for just a rainy day. It's a classic combo with Mirror Entity, and it seems like an easy shoehorn in this deck because, to be fair, there aren't a lot of stuff out there that puts in Eldrazi spawns and scions into play. I have to do a bit of a workaround, which is why Mirror Entity comes into play, and all kinds of other stuff that I have in this deck that I'll show you in a little bit. Evercruel's Hatcher, this puts in 3 spawns, perfect. This one puts in 2. This is a cast trigger. This and Spawn Gang Commander, they're both cast triggers, so unfortunately there is a part of my package that doesn't combo well with these, and I have a flicker package in this deck. So I'm running things like Brago and Nahiri's Resolve, etc., both of which lets me select multiple targets to flicker and get their ETB triggers. Everything up to these 2 creatures was an ETB trigger. These are the only things that trigger on cast, and the rate is too good to ignore. You make 2 with this one, you make 3 with this one. So they're in the deck. Soul Hoarder, this is a end step trigger that lets you flicker a creature. Oran Frostfang to add a little bit of extra lethality to your attacking creatures, but I care more for the card advantage. It's $1 to make it so whenever something connects to someone, you draw. Marin the Clan of Neltooth. I kept the experience package a little low. I've seen some people's texts where they just throw in all that introduced the experience counters, but it just seems like overkill since I don't really care about the stat increase. Ancient 2 Heavens is 1. This basically turns your Annihilator trigger into Annihilator 2. Whenever a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of permanent control, it triggers an additional time. Excellent. When I was looking through the EDH rec recommendations, nowhere in sight, so I hope this catches on in the near future. I'm also running Wolfgar, the Icewind Dale, for the same reason. This doubles your attack triggers, and Annihilator is indeed an attack trigger.
Let the hate flow through you.
You know what's better than doing something once? Doing it multiple times. Emil the Blessed. For 3 mana, you could sink into this and flicker something. You could use your Eldrazi Scion's Response to sack 2 this ability to flicker one of your bigger targets that puts in more and just replace them immediately. You could actually combo infinitely with anything that puts in 3 Scions specifically, since the activation cost is 3. So your key pieces with this will be the Brood Monitor and the Emrakul's Hatcher. So some extra fun combo potential in that card. Oddly, also not in the recommended EDH list. So there is some creativity in here if you want to stand out. I don't know how long things like this will stand out, but I guess I like to toot my own horn and pat myself on the back for thinking about it. Yarok the Desecrated. This doubles your ETB triggers, perfect in here. Adrix and Nev, Twin Casters, this doubles the tokens you produce. Eldrazi Displacer, this is another one of your Emil enablers. This is an infinite combo with the previous 2 Spawn/Scion makers I mentioned earlier. Some nice redundancy. Toski Bearer Secrets, this is another, I guess, Oran Frostfang, but it's indestructible for a mana less. Doesn't give Death Touch, but I just want the sweet card advantage. Now we're on the sorceries. This thing makes 2 Scions. I don't have a way to consistently get this back, but the density is there. Cut a Deal, Painful Truce, Chart a Course. I specifically care about density when it comes to mana investment. I like to make a 1 mana investment for one thing. In this scenario, I'm making 1 mana investment for a card, and the density is quite nice. My philosophy with Commander lately in terms of card advantage selection is the game is getting really fast, and doing something on an upkeep isn't good anymore. You can do it with things like the brand new Obeka, but these like one-off effects let you kind of catch up, if that makes sense. So like, if I was to play this on turn 6, I'll see 2 cards, and those 2 cards couldn't have possibly been made up by an upkeep trigger, if that makes sense. It kind of lets you like rewind and catch up with your opponents who maybe got their stuff down before you. The recovery from your opponents having cards is nice, and I have plenty of other engines in here, so I think these are nice for just closing the gap, and then the engines will accelerate you past everyone else. Brood Birthing, this is a little situational. It only lets you cast this if you control an Eldrazi spawn, but you have several ways of making them. The density on this is nice because you make 3 tokens for 2 mana. Glimpse of the Impossible, for 3 mana, you exile the top 3 cards of your library if you don't cast any of them. What I appreciate about this card is it puts them in your graveyard to be safer later. Most of these exile effects, they stay there permanently, but for every card you can't cast off this, you make a Eldrazi token. And something I want to bring up, things going to your graveyard does matter. There are some pre-order prices kind of disbarring me from playing certain cards. One of them being Spawnbed Protector. It's now currently $5, so I think between when I looked at this list this morning and now, the price actually got cut in half, which is good because as I predicted, this would happen. Every time a new set comes out, sellers are trying to squeeze every little penny out of people. Now I might have to go back and make some changes and throw this in here. Why Spawnbed Protector is really good is you can, at the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 Eldrazi creature from your graveyard to your hand and create 2 spawns. I'm pretty happy to see that Spawnbed being so cheap now. I'm not kidding when I said that like less than 6 hours ago, that was double in price. If that's any indication of like what happens with pre-order sets and like people on YouTube throwing their arms up and conducting a doomsday, I guess, point of view.
Your world's gonna end.
That's not the case. You just have to be patient and things will be cheaper down the road, and that's a pretty safe bet because that's historically what happens with every set that comes out. If you want an idea of like the print size of this, well, Fallout was a short print and this is supposed to be supposedly bigger. And if you look at any of the Fallout prints, a lot of that stuff didn't hold its value. And you can make an argument that Modern Horizons is a lot different.
Right.
And there will be a lot more things that will affect the ebbs and flows of Modern. And that's true, but it's very specific and targeted. I don't think, that creature we just talked about, Spawn Bed Protector, this is not a Modern card. This is strictly something that someone would play in Commander. So there's going to be a lot of these Commander cards in circulation. They're going to be in the decks, and then they're going to be in the collector boxes, and they're going to be in the play boosters. They're like the bonus sheets for both of them. In the collector boxes, you'll get like the stretch version or the portrait version, depending if they're the commander or not, or if they're a legendary, I should say. So there's going to be a lot in circulation than most people would think. Like I said, just wait. And I'm probably going to make some changes between now and the 11th when this deck becomes available for me to purchase on Moto and feature on the channel. And I'll just make some minor changes between this and then. I hope you all don't mind, but I try to keep my decks under $100 to make it so it's affordable to all of you. And I wouldn't recommend cards to you that I wouldn't buy myself. Me playing on Moto is very cheap. I rarely have to spend more than $10 to play a deck. We also have Skittering Invasion. It's just a dense card. Per 7 mana, you make 5 Eldrazi spawns. I normally don't talk about the removal package, but since my spawns all take away resources from my opponents just by attacking, I wanted to make sure that I could deal with the crux of my deck, and that's board wipes. I have a counterspell package, and that's why I specifically chose counter magic for other like single target removal, because in theory I should be able to sweep all that up with just attacking, and they don't just kill my spawns with blocking because they'll have indestructible. I think I'll hamper my opponents enough where I don't need targeted removal, but I have one, and then it's a Braid. And it came out that way because of budgeting restraints, and Braid's just one of my favorite instant speed removal spells. Volatile Claws, this is another way for you to give all your creatures that Scion or Spawn typing. It's only till end of turn, but it could be big enough for you to close out a game. There is also a stack block increase, but I don't really care about that. I care about the creature typing. Same with Shields of Velasvel. This gives everything Changeling, and it's at instant speed for 1 mana. I like this card a lot more because obviously the efficiency of 1 mana versus 3 is a lot better. Talisman of Conviction. I run all the talismans because they have that waste colorless pip on them. I'm predicting that the Commander exclusive cards will fall within a more reasonable price. I left these in here for preparation, and it's looking like that's going to happen because we just saw that Spawn Bed drop in half in price, but there are specific cards that do care about having that waste hit. Things like Kozilek's Command. This is a great card for this deck. I think it could only be ran in very specific scenarios. Unfortunately, it hasn't dropped in price yet, but target player makes X Scions. Based on how much you invest in this, you could draw a card and scry X, or exile target creature mana value X or less, or exile up to X cards from a graveyard. This is why I'm keeping the talismans in place, so I can meet these casting requirements. I'm also running Golden Argosy. This is a really nice attack trigger because it lets you exile up to any number of creatures, and then you get to return to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Target as many of your Eldrazi's I put in Scions and Spawns as you can to make more little babies. Panharmonicon to double your ETB triggers, and Maskwood Nexus again to cheat your creature typing for that big sweet swing when you activate Azlask. Extraordinary Journey. It's like a watered-down version of Ghostly Pilferer, another criminally underplayed card for 10 cents. It limits to drawing once a turn, but I'm okay with that. See, Moldervine Reclamation's nice in this deck too. I've been playing this card a lot lately because it draws whenever you lose a token. What's nice about your Scions and Spawns, they have sacked activated abilities on themselves, so if you're in a pinch, you could sacrifice them to breathe some life into your game with Moldervine Reclamation. Path of Annihilation. This lets you make 2 Eldrazi spawns, and then you could use them as mana dorks to tap for any mana of any color. Seems really fitting in this deck. And then whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, you gain 4 life. That's kind of negligible. I only care about the middle and first ability. Kozilek's Unsealing. This thing will help you rack up a lot of Eldrazi spawns. You make 2 of them every time you cast a creature with 4, 5, or 6. And of my 23 creatures, that number comes up a lot. Should you cast something with 7 or greater, draw 3. A nice card advantage piece, but something that's probably not going to come up unless I play that spawn bed. I care about making the tokens over the 3 cards that I draw off of this. Virtue of Knowledge. This doubles your ETB triggers, and you could also copy and activate triggered ability. Conspiracy. This lets you choose a creature type. Creatures that you own that are in play or controlled are that creature type. What's kind of fun about this card and Liliana's Contract is if you were to play the Lilia Contract early,
Use it.
it's 4 cards, and if people want to waste their mana blowing it up, you still have the Eldrazi Scions and Spawns to fall back onto. That's why I like this card a lot. It's great. Like, it's not something you hold on to, specifically a Pearl Clutch. It's just a nice little segue. If you happen to draw a Conspiracy after you play Liliana's Contract, just follow up with this and choose Demons instead of Spawns and Scion. Arcane Adaptation, same story, but for 2 mana cheaper. Kindred Discovery, this thing will rack you up a lot of cards. You draw every time a creature of the chosen type enters or whenever it attacks. Since you're cheating creature typings and you're making a lot of them at the same time, this will come up a lot. And then we have our land package. If anyone's told you that you can't build a multicolored Blueberg list on a cheap mana base, well, you're looking at the contrary. I have playtested this a couple times and I don't have issues. I love my mana base in this deck. For 20 bucks, I think I'm getting a pretty good steal. And again, they have that colorless pip for paying waste costs of some of the spells I hope to fit in here in the near future. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you stuck around this long, just subscribe and you get to see me feature this, I think, on the 12th. This was my second most popular commander that was voted on in my community. You look at my channel here, go to the community tab. Azlask has a 21%, and I just finished a Haragast list, and I'm gonna probably record and put that out for you guys tomorrow morning. I release videos at 5 a.m. now. Just for consistency, it's when all my folks are up based on my analytics. There's plenty more to come. I hope you enjoyed. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you.